June 8th, 2021 at 4 o'clock. Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
It's roll call. The Honorable William Bill Edwards, Mayor.
Here.
The Honorable Catherine F. Rowell, District 1.
Here.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Here.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3. The Honorable.
Here.
All right, thank you. The Honorable Naeema Gilyard, District 4. The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5. The Honorable Councilmember Khalid. The Honorable Mark Baker, District 7.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, these are 3 items that I'm bringing to you for your approval that are very time sensitive. Many of you have already had interviews with personnel and with staff and conversations with the manager and assistant manager. And of course, as for a second measure, we have put this agenda on the Novus agenda. So as having said that, Mr. Clerk, would you call the first item, please?
Yes, sir. The first item is item 1. Request council approval for the lease purchase of 2 Marion triple combination rescue style pumper to replace equipment taken out of service. The vehicles are to be purchased through the state of Georgia pricing contract. The total request is not to exceed $692,000 per vehicle. That equals $1,384,000 with funding provided by GMA leasing over a period of 7 years at an estimated rate of 2.15%.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion, please. I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll move that we approve the purchase of 2 Marion triple combination rescue style pumpers to replace equipment taken out of service.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Any further discussion?
I have discussion.
What's your discussion, Mr. Lee?
I do understand and would love to hear from Chief Jones. I do understand that one of the reasons that some of our trucks have such high mileage is because they are used for every response, and that we might be able to get some smaller trucks to respond to some medical emergencies. And is that true?
Chief
Good
Jones.
evening.
Chief Jones.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Chad Jones, Fire Chief. Thank you for that question. Yes, in our strategic plan and over the next 5 years, we have been discussing with the city manager and assistant city manager to move towards purchasing either mini pumpers or rescues to take some of the burden off of the larger trucks, strategically place them around the city to run those emergency medical calls. About 80% of our calls are emergency medical calls. We could have put 2 certified firefighters on there to respond to those calls. So that is in the strategic plan, and we hope to move forward with our capital and budget and be able to procure those in the future years.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready to make that request, you have my full support for that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mrs. Willis.
Yes, and so thank you, Chief Jones, for providing that information regarding the strategic plan. But again, you did say over a 5-year period, and we have been discussing the possibility of doing that since we've been elected. But at this point, we are not there. And because we're not there, we must do what we have to do to help our public safety help us. So I'm in full support of this measure, and I don't think we should do anything to hamper our public safety division, and that's police and fire, from doing what they have to do to protect the citizens of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. And I did hear Ms. Naeema, Ms. Gilyard say something.
Yes, I'm trying to get in. I'm trying to get into Novus. But anyway, I'm I have a couple of concerns, and those concerns in no way relate to trying to hamper the fire department from performing its duties. I was kind of shocked and glad that what was sent to us was a list of all the trucks, all the engines, and other kinds of equipment. And out of the 11 engines, only 6 seemed to be functioning. And I really didn't know that the fire vehicles was in such bad shape. That's number one. Number two, I'm looking at the agenda summary, and the section for whether or not a financial impact statement has been received is checked no. The legislative process complete is checked no. And I find that concerning, since every funding issue that we deal with is supposed to go through the FITs. So the $1.3 million is definitely a lot of money, in addition to the $182,000 that we're going to have to spend for equipment, additional equipment for the trucks. But my biggest concern is the budget. We don't even have a 2022 budget. And this is going to be coming out of the 22 budget. And so there is no projection that says anything, for instance, like, well, we think that, you know, the 2022 budget would be X amount of money. And, you know, we know that we're going to have to spend X amount for the fire out of it. And so we don't have any idea in terms of where that is going to come from. So I think that while we know that we have to do this, that we needed to have additional information, you know, to be able to make a different kind of decision. We just don't have enough funding information, if you will. So I think that is definitely needed. And so that is kind of disturbing to me.
Before we go to Mr. Baker, Ms. Jones, you want to acknowledge to the public where the funding is coming from?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor Edwards. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I did want to address the reason why you don't have a FISC included is because in the past, our legislative items have been associated with the FISC. The only thing in regards to a big ticket item like this, we just get the approval and we work with our finance department. We hadn't done the FISC for any other operational purchases, like a engine. Ms. Bembry, will you share with the council the specific line item that's being recommended that we take this purchase from, please?
Correct. Well, this will actually not impact the fiscal year 21 budget due to the delays in time it does take to get this equipment into service. We will be factoring this into the fiscal year 22 budget. And the fiscal year 22 budget is in preliminary stages. We are compiling the departmental requests, reviewing them with management, and we're just not at a stage in the fiscal year 22 budget where it's ready to be distributed at any additional level at this time. But we are taking into this account this purchase as a piece or a component of that fiscal year 22 budget. The idea behind this lease purchase is one for affordability of breaking a large purchase down, but two for matching the periods of service to the taxpayer benefit. So for when a large purchase is in service over a longer period of time, you're matching that to the taxpayer that actually receives that by distributing that cost over a longer period of time. So this is pretty regular to commit to debt service without necessarily having a finalized budget in place, because it is a purchase that needs to be made. Just know that it is being factored into the fiscal year 22 budget development.
Okay, Mr. Baker or Mr. Jones,
Well, wait a minute.
No, I'm speaking. Mr. Jones?
Yes,
Chief
sir.
Jones. Chief
Oh,
Jones,
Chief Jones, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Chief Jones here.
sir, has any of this type of question been proposed to you prior to this meeting? And have you had an opportunity to answer these questions?
I have not with any of the council. All of the finance has been done through finance and Ms. Jones's office and Mr. Tom's as far as financing and budget and capital, which we've been discussing throughout.
Okay, I understand. Ms. Gilyard, I want to say something else, and then I will call for the Mr. Baker is next. And then I'll let Ms. Gilyard come back, then I'll call for the motion.
This is not the first time that we as a council have voted on large dollars amounts for vehicles, whether they be fire trucks or cars. But this is the first time that we're being asked to do it without a budget and without us knowing specifically what that budget might look like. So that was why, and I know that it is 2022 and not 2021 because it was stated so in all the documents, and that just gives me some concern because we it's like we're in the dark. We don't know what the 2022 budget is going to look like, and we don't even have any preliminary figures. And I know that it's still pretty early, but I still have some concern about that.
Okay, I think your question was significantly answered. And Mr. Baker, then we'll have the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment. I do agree with Councilwoman Gilyard, and I do have constituents who have reached out to me in reference to this large amount and why we're doing it in a special call meeting, and why didn't we know that it was going to be something that was approaching, so that we could have had it on a regular agenda meeting, and all of the questions from the community and people anticipating a meeting could have actually given their voices to it as well. I'm all for our departments having everything that they need. I think that the chief kind of chimed in on something that I wanted to hear more about. For example, the other vehicles, we do know that 80% of their calls are for medical responses, and our main trucks aren't, necessarily required for that. And I wanted to hear, our chief is new. I would like to hear more from him, but to find out that we're doing that, or we will be hearing from him in an upcoming meeting after such a large financial undertaking is a little, I guess, off-centered, I would say. And I do have a little bit of reservation when it comes to that.
All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Dr. Baker, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Mr. Clerk,
Yes, sir.
vote please.
So roll call vote. So motion by Councilmember Rowell, seconded by Councilmember Gums to approve. Councilmember Rowell,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilyard,
Will abstain
For what reason?
because I'm conflicted.
Okay. Next.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Abstain.
And your reason, sir?
Yes, sir. Because it seems as if our chief has a more cost-effective initiative that we have yet to hear about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
that item was approved 4-0-2. Councilmember Reeves is absent. Next item is item 2, request council approval for the lease purchase of 40 Ford Explorer police vehicles dedicated for the patrol of Fulton Industrial Boulevard and other assigned patrol areas. The vehicles are to be purchased through the state of Georgia pricing contract. The total request is not to exceed $39,000 per vehicle, which totals $1,560,000 with funding provided by GMA Leasing over a period of 5 years at an estimated rate of 2.05%.
I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move that we approve the lease purchase of 40 Ford Explorer police vehicles dedicated for the patrol of FIB and other assigned patrol areas.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Gilyard.
Okay. For this one, in terms of the budget, it is even more of an issue for me, simply because it includes FIB. We have no budget. We don't know how much money is coming over, if any at all, from FIB. And in my interaction with Mr. Toms, he said that Fulton County would like to keep Public Works until October 31st. We don't know what that means. We do know that Fulton County charges administrative costs. We don't know what that's going to be. We don't know how many cars are going to FIB and the others are going somewhere else, because it said only some of the cars will be going to FIB and others will be going to, someplace else in the system. And then the last thing is that the lease, the GMA master lease says that all cars would only get a max of 48 months, but this one is for 5 years, which makes it 60 months. So there's some discrepancy there in terms of what is in the lease for this. So I have those concerns, and the biggest one is FIB, because we don't have a plan, we don't have the budget, and we don't know, and X number of cars are going to it. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't go. It's just that there's not enough information. And I don't like voting for especially large dollar amounts when I don't think I have enough information to.
One of the issues, Mrs. Gilyard, that you proclaimed having to do with public works. I have been in negotiation with the city, with the county, to have a transition plan for public work until I think it's is it September? Correct me, Ms. Jones, if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir. Or they have even considered allowing us to go through the end of this calendar year.
Right, and as a result of that, we would provide fire services for the north end of Fulton County also. So we're in
That's
the process
correct.
right. So we're in the process of doing all that. I don't want you to think that we're paying money that we're not paying. And to answer your second question, Chief, are you on there?
Yes.
Could you answer that question for her, please?
I'm sorry?
Could you answer the Fulton Industrial question and what we're going to do in terms of the cars?
So what we're doing, we have 4 different shifts, and what we're trying to do is we looked at the Georgia Tech study. We anticipate that Fulton Industrial has to be broken down into 6 different beats. When you think about 6 different patrol beats, you're looking at one police officer per beat over 4 shifts. And so we'll be using those vehicles for FIB, and we're starting up a commercial vehicle unit as well to help deal with a lot of these tractor trailer complaints that we're getting. I understand. I know that this is kind of fast for everyone, but understand the state legislators just voted on this. I believe it was the 24th of last month, and Fulton County just relinquished their rights to patrol along the FIB corridor on south of I-20 over as of June 1st. And so it's fast for everybody, but we also need to make sure that we have the appropriate response, given that it's in our city right now.
Okay. We'll hear from Mr. Khalid.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. Can I just ask the question?
You can ask another question, but I did. I acknowledged you the first time, but go ahead.
I just want to know, and I don't know whether to ask you or Miss Jones, whether or not there have been any discussions with Fulton County in terms of the budget, how much is left in it, whenever they're funds would transfer to us, if any at all, or has there been any kind of discussion about that?
Yes, there have. Yes, there have. And one of the discussions we finally concluded that with the $4.4 million for the resurfacing of Fulton Industrial Boulevard that the county commission voted on last week to give that money on to us. I'll let Ms. Jones talk to you about other issues and conversations that we're having as a result of funding for the city for the corridor. Ms. Jones, you want to?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I mean, you basically shared the gist of it, but it's the 4.4 million to do the resurfacing. Again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that they are open to assisting the city in doing the public works maintenance on Fulton Industrial Boulevard until the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2021. And they have also talked with me about some other transportation projects that they would be willing to do for us. And these are things that have come up, I think, in the past on Enon Road and the old National Highway concerning some sidewalk projects. That is under consideration. And of course, we are still working with them to do some negotiations regarding Wolf Creek. And as the mayor mentioned earlier, they would like our city's assistance in continuing the fire service north of I-20.
And
Okay.
how much administrative costs are they going to charge us?
Well, they have not mentioned any type of administrative cost.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Khalid.
Thank you. I have a few more follow-up questions for Chief Meadows. You're still there, sir?
Yes.
So when I first, right, we got some of these details at the very last minute. When I first saw the 40 cars for Fulton Industrial Boulevard, I was like, Fulton Industrial Boulevard is like 6 square miles. But I do see these other services. So the other services are the commercial truck enforcement?
Yes, the other truck enforcement will be adding additional detective units because there are more crimes that have to be investigated along the old national corridor. I'm mandating that we put heavier traffic enforcement along that corridor, along with Camp Creek Parkway as well.
And so and I understand the the urgency of FIB, like this is clearly a unique circumstance which does require a special call meeting. How many of those 40 cars are for FIB and how many of those 40 cars are for other things?
So here's the thing, when we look at 6 patrol beats along, when you look at 6 patrol beats on 4 different shifts, you're looking at a total of about 32 cars that would be just for FIB in addition to the commercial vehicle units and detectives. And when we got our recent report on our fleet, 81 of our vehicles right now are 10 years old or older or exceed 100,000 miles, which puts them at the end of their life cycle. And so our repair cost has come to half of the total that we're essentially asking for today, which would have given us half the number of vehicles that we need, that we could essentially purchase brand new instead of having vehicles in and out of the shop regularly. And with the aging fleet the way that it is now, when a police officer ends his shift, if he gets a late call, the police officer that's waiting for that vehicle to come in essentially has to wait there until that police officer comes back with that vehicle until he or she is able to then go back out on the street. So we're not nearly as efficient in the deployment of our resources as we would like to be. And we've kind of made up until this point, but we're kind of at a stage right now with this aging fleet where it doesn't make sense to continue to put band-aids on it.
No, I completely understand that. I have been on ride-alongs with police and waiting for people to come back so that we can start our shift. I totally get it. And it does help that they are amortized over 5 years. I think that's great. I think it's just helpful sometimes not to conflate FIB with just a larger budget priority, because I know that all departments have budget needs. But we have about, but before FIB, we have about 10 beats in the city. How many beats do we have for our entire city?
After the Georgia Tech study, they recommended 18 beats.
Right, but what are we up to?
We're up to 12. We're up to deploying 12 beats now, and we're trying to get to the 18, but then we want to eat that elephant one bite at a time. And so essentially what we've been doing is adding a little bit more every year. Now at the beginning of 2022, we're going to come back and we'll ask for another 30 vehicles, essentially because we have to be able to rotate those aging vehicles out. It's costing essentially more money than they're worth to continue to fix.
Okay, so the 6 beats, so the other 90 square miles of our city are split across 12 beats, but 6 beats for 6 square miles is like 1 beat per square mile. Could you just explain why that is?
So you're looking at 33,000 additional E911 calls. And so patrolling commercial areas is much different than patrolling a residential neighborhood. For instance, we have more resources dedicated to the Old National and Cascade corridors simply because of the amount of daytime traffic that comes through those areas. And so you really have to look at the static population in relationship to your E911 code. And what you don't want to do is not have the appropriate response in a given area, and then you start pulling resources from other areas that doesn't allow for the appropriate responses in our residential communities.
And so I understand the daytime population of FIB is much larger than the nighttime population. Are most of those calls coming in the daytime, and some of those units might be available to go other places in the evening?
Absolutely. And see, that's one of the things that we will look at. If we're able to redeploy or pull those cars and send them into other areas so that we can maximize or put them towards the 18 beat design as opposed to the 24 beat design, then that will happen. But what we need to understand is that we just want to have a proportional response given the time of day. And so those resources will be deployed or redeployed as we move forward, but we just need to make sure that we have the capacity to do so.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, could you hold 1 minute? There's a correction that the clerk wants to make. Mr. Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I wanted to correct the listing on the agenda. What I read was a previous version. It should state the total request is not to exceed 39,000 per vehicle for 1,560,000 with funding provided through a competitive lease over a period of 5 years at an estimated 2.05%. It's my understanding that the GMA is one option, but there may be an opportunity to get another financing tool through a lower rate. And that's one of that correction for the record. And that is what is listed on the agenda online.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Reed. Mayor Pro Tem, go right ahead.
So I'm confused as to why we're even making a distinction about FIB. FIB is a part of our city. They're in our city. And Chief Meadows want to bring them into the folds, public safety wise, just like he's doing any other part of our city. This request, I'm positive, has been fully vetted from our city manager to our finance team. And it is before this council with the best recommendation possible. For our police chief to be integrated in the manner that he's being integrated, I just think it's ludicrous to me. When he has successfully decreased our crime by 30% over the past 3 years, and now we have a new 7 to 8 mile stretch of territory that is in our city that needs to be brought into the folds public safety wise. I just don't understand why there's hesitation. Yes, we have unforeseen financial circumstances all the time, but here's where we are. We all wanted Fulton Industrial. We all fought hard for Fulton Industrial. So let's do whatever it takes to help police help us and protect the community that is now a part of our city. If he needs the cars, let's just move forward with giving him the resources so that our police officers can provide the quality service that we said that we wanted to provide to this area that we historically have been providing all along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Clerk, is there anyone else's hand I cannot recognize that's not on this queue?
Yeah, I had Mr. Councilmember Baker and then Councilmember Rowell
And me,
and Councilmember Gilyard.
Gilyard.
We'll do Baker, Rowell, and we will vote after Gilyard.
Yes, sir. Thank you for acknowledging me. I just wanted to say, first of all, thanks to Chief Meadows for following through. It seems like this is the result of the beat study, and it's going to be helpful to our residents. This is something that has been going on and festering for the past couple of years since the beat study, and it looks like we're finally getting closer to bringing that together. However, I still have to echo the sentiments of the residents in my district and apologize to them for having yet again another multi-million-dollar emergency. The people in my district are overtly requesting that we have these conversations in regular scheduled meetings just for the sake of transparency. However, I do want to note to those same people who reached out, contacted me in reference to the emergency meeting for this undertaking, that this is also an attempt to cut down the response times that we talk about so often in every meeting that we have, and all of the complaints and comments regarding our law enforcement officers. So hopefully this will help or assist in some fashion with that. And again, I don't know how or why, but I'm asking on behalf of my district that we try to approach these high number items, high ticket items in regular scheduled meetings. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments, Dr. Baker. Dr. Rao?
Just to remind everybody, when we first set our schedule for this calendar year, we would have not met in June because normally we would have been at the Georgia Municipal Association meeting. And so, of course, now that's been pushed back to August, but that's any meeting we would have had would have been a special call meeting. And so I just want to remind them of that, as well as the fact that as it relates to FIB, we're obligated by law to service that area. And in addition to Fulton Industrial being serviced, Loch Lomond 911 calls are also being routed to the city. I want to thank Chief and, Councilwoman Gums, and Corey Reeves, and the mayor for coming out. We were all there waiting for the first calls to come in. So between that and moving towards the direction of, again, as it's been mentioned, the beat study and very dated cars, this is really not an option. I mean, I don't think we want them patrolling in outdated equipment with the high mileage. So thank you also, Chief, for outlining the fact that we're going to have to come back and continue to replace the dated fleet that we inherited from Fulton County. And that's a process. We've been doing it a little bit at a time. But again, any meeting we would have had before the end of July would have been a special call meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rao, Ms. Gilyard, and Mr. Clerk. Let's go.
I just want to add that we don't get an opportunity to to discuss things until we have a meeting. And these are opportunities and times to ask questions and to get clarity on matters. And it's not because from my perspective that anyone is trying to do anything in any kind of negative kind of way. I was really glad that the chief, and these kind of things come to the surface when you start asking questions, because the chief brought to the table the beat study. And, I said, wow, yeah, I remember the beat study. But we have to be really, really frugal with our money, and we need to know everything that's going on with it. And just because we're asking questions about it or anything else is not really in a negative way. We are 7 different council people with 7 different personalities, and we just approach things differently. And we do know, I agree with Dr. Baker and with Dr. Rowell that we know that what we inherited, we know we have to fix it. I just really like to know a little bit more about the money when I'm making any kind of decision. So I just wanted to share.
Mr. Clerk.
It's a roll call vote. It's a motion by
Mayor,
Councilmember
I
Rowell.
I just mentioned that I was back in the queue and my hand is up, and
Mr. Clerk,
I went
will you go back on the note and read my last comment as it pertains to voting?
Yes, I believe you indicated that the last 3 speakers will be Councilmember Baker, Rowell, and then Gilyard.
Okay, let's vote, please.
So motion to approve by Councilmember Rowell, seconded by Councilmember Willis. Roll call vote. Councilmember Rowell,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willis,
yes.
Councilmember Gilyard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves, Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves. Okay, Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved 6-0.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 3, request council approval of the transportation special purpose local option sales tax, T-Splosh 2, final list.
Ms. Valenzuela.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. It is my pleasure to present to you transportation special purpose local option sales taxes, T-Splosh 2. This presentation to you comes up with forecasted tax collection for 2022 to 2027 for tiers 1 and 2 at $90.3 million. In summary, how we come back and how we analyze each project and how we recommend it to you. It is in front of you what we have taken into consideration before selecting and making recommendations for projects throughout the City of South Fulton. We have analyzed over 200 projects, and we have wrote over, I would say 300 to 350 streets before coming to you. Next slide, please. At a glance, what's T-Splosh 2? We have divided a similar scenario as T-Splosh 1, which we were very successful, into 6 brackets. Maintenance and safety, which it is a bracket for resurfacing of corridors and subdivisions. Number 2, bridges that are with sufficiency ratings at a low and structurally in need to be repaired or replaced. Need to be replaced. And number 3, operations and safety. Locations where there's a need on congestion, there's a need for geometric improvements, or a need for additional to relieve congestion. Number 4, pedestrian and bike and streetscapes. A bracket that it is related for sidewalks. And the T-Splosh 1, we were only able to provide 2 sidewalks. At this time, we're providing a bigger number of sidewalks since we have received numerous requests for sidewalks. Number 5, quick response projects, a funding bracket that will allow us to provide and respond very quickly on scenarios that we found needs for the City of South Fulton, which is very often under unforeseen conditions. And number 6, program management, which will allow us to pay for construction inspections, rights of acquisition, project management, and so on. And what did we do when I mentioned to you with regards to riding all the streets throughout the City of South Fulton? it is typical that anybody that will recommend on road resurfacing will have to go to a paving condition index. The City of South Fulton we contracted with a vendor that came for free for the City of South Fulton, and we're able to analyze 540 miles for our roads. What this study did is it was a paving management assessment, which came back for us with a paving condition index, which is a numerical rating of the paving conditions based on the type and severity of distress observed on the paving surface. The PCI value condition is represented by a numerical index between 0 and 100. In front of you, you see it, the quality of the roads and how it's being rated. Most of our roads are for now, at this point, are from 70 and below. And the 2+1, we've done a good number of roads. That's the reason why at a fair condition. But still, we have a good number of roads that are below 50, and we're making those recommendations. In some instances, there's some roads that have some subdivisions that have failed at certain roads, not entirely on the subdivision, but still we're recommending to do partial repairs as it is appropriate. Next slide, please. Just to mention to you, we have a good number of corridors throughout the City of South Fulton that are in need to be resurfaced. Those corridors are, as listed on front of you, are corridors between District 1 to District 7. We drove all over the city. We have taken into consideration what is needed and what we couldn't do under T+1 and what we couldn't done in the past under the LMIG program. Next slide, please. Subdivision toppings. It is our recommendation. We have worked with CDRA, and those are the last 4 subdivisions which the roads are missing the last layer of paving, which will be the topping. Next slide, please. Subdivision resurfacing. We have found still a good number of subdivisions that are in need to be resurfaced. We have identified the worst subdivisions, and we believe that what you see in front of you is the best representation for subdivisions throughout the City of South Fulton. Bridges. As you can see, I'm showing to you in front of you a good number of bridges. Some of them are under design, some of them are ready to be built, but we're in need of funding. A primary picture in front of you, it is the Cascade Road over branch of Utah Creek. The bridge was about to collapse. The vertical walls inside, the barrels were substantially already displaced. The bridge was hanging without a proper base. And in front of you, what you see is the new bridge. We have a good number of bridges that are in a similar condition to Cascade Road. We want to avoid any future road closures, and we want to be able to build the ones that we already closed. Intersection improvements. We have found a good number by discussing with our community and listen to you all on your concerns on roads that we're putting stop signs, we're putting blinking lights and so on. It is our intention to make those intersections much safer for our community. At this point, we're not recommending if we're gonna come back to you with a traditional intersection or a roundabout type of scenario. It is our intention that upon approval of TS Plus, that we will go project by project and analyze each intersection before recommending what would be the best scenario for a particular location.
Mr. Valenzuela, would you advance the slide? I think you didn't. You were talking and you were not on the right slide.
All right. I'm very sure. Okay. Corey? Corey?
The intersection improvements, I think is where you were.
Intersection improvements?
Yes, please.
You're there.
Okay. Intersection improvements. As I mentioned before, and the intersection improvements, we have selected intersections that are in need for congestion relief, might be geometric improvements, or might be a need for relief traffic or ITMS or ITS. At this point, we're not recommending a traditional intersection or a roundabout. Once T-Splash passes, we're gonna study each intersection and we're gonna make the proper recommendations for each location. Next slide, please. We're also recommending ITS signal upgrades. What we have is it is typical that a corridor that has multiple signals needs to be have the latest ingredients with regards to detectors and others, so the corridor will properly function. On Cascade Road is one of the corridors that we're having to experience constantly delays on the roadway. It is because our infrastructure is old already, and it is our intention to make a difference on Cascade Road. A similar situation, if you can see below, on the picture below, that is a flat shoulder road where we are doing an ATMS and the T+1, a project that hopefully that we're going to be able to let the construction, and you're going to be able to see how vehicles are moving from one location to another location without interruption. Next slide, please. Bike and pedestrians. On the T+1, as mentioned to you before, we only had two small projects for sidewalks. At this point, we have recommended a list of projects that our community has been asking for. We're doing different things at those locations, and it is the Public Works recommendation to move forward with those sidewalks as listed in front of you. Next slide, please. Quick response projects. At this point is the better that we have the funding in place for us, the quicker that we'll respond. Instead of us have to wait for the state or have to wait for general funding or other scenarios on how to get assistance on funding, we double up our response or quick response line. From 2%, we went to 4%. So that will allow us to do anything that we left it out of this recommendation, anything that will come up with unforeseen conditions. This type of funding will allow us to do quick response projects under T+2. And program management, construction management, we also up it a bit more because due to our experience on the T+1, we missed it, right-of-way services, we missed the CI services. So we were under a different scenario. Now we have our own destiny. And it is our recommendation to ensure that we're conservative with everything that we're doing and that we provide the proper technical engineering points needed for the City of South Fulton. Next slide, please. The proposed timeline. The timeline, it comes from Fulton County. We are from February to May. We developed the list, and by June 15, it is the deadline where jurisdictions are to adopt the project list. And then, as you can see, it comes July 2, July 2nd, and hopefully have ready our projects along with other municipalities in Fulton County for the vote election on November 2nd. Next slide, please. With that said, I will be glad to respond any questions that you may have.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, and if we got to have a discussion, that's fine, but I want to make a motion to approve the recommendations of T+2. Is that, we got to approve this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Second. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Where did he go?
I'm sorry. I have in discussion Mr. Khalid, Ms. Rao, and then Ms. Willis.
Okay. I'm just going to be transparent and say that at the end of these questions and comments, I will probably be making a substitute motion to table this until Monday, June 14th. I know that we have to approve this by the 15th, but I have many, many questions. There are $94 million in decisions. And I just received this document less than 24 hours ago. There was no time for me to share this document with my residents to say, is there anything on here? Do you think anything is missing? Are your streets missing? I asked for a completed status report of T-Splost 1, and I received that 30 minutes before this meeting. So my first question is every project that was considered for T-Splost 1, but not funded, on this list for T-Splost 2?
Projects that were on tier 2 were moved into T-Splost 2. So projects that we didn't touch under T-Splost 1 were moved into tier and under T-Splost 2. Now with regards to T-Splost 1, 99% of the projects are on some kind of phase when it comes to design. A good number is they are on the design phase, they are on the rights-of-way phase, and they're about to let to construction. All projects for resurfacing from 2017 to date, we are in advance. We're about to complete by October of this year. We will be completing 100% and above of what it was requested or proposed under T-Splost 1.
So, and my second question is about the projects under T-Splost 1, because you have to understand, I am not ready to let $94 million for a new round of projects because I don't have all the questions answered from the first $94 million. The list that was sent to us 30 minutes ago names subdivisions, but does not have street level detail. And one of the complaints that I have heard from my residents is that they paved the main street, but they paved no side streets, no courts in our neighborhood that are in repair. So are we going to go back and finish the subdivisions, or did we just pave the main street through the subdivision?
In a good number of subdivisions on the T-Splost 1, we have resurfaced all subdivisions. Now, every year, I have provided the list and the schedules of every single subdivision that was done. As we were moving with resurfacing, Public Works has provided a detailed explanation to it. Now, for T-Splost, for resurfacing for 2020 and 2021, a detailed list was also provided. Currently, we are in the process of resurfacing. Contractors, they have all the proper way of doing those projects, and typically the first step that they do is they do deep base repairs, they pick up the main corridor, and then they come back and resurface the entire subdivisions. So meaning that the main roads. So I will ask to just pause for a minute, allow them to do the work, and I will promise you, if we missed a road and a smaller road somewhere, we're gonna make the proper repairs at those locations. I received your request on T-Splost 1 yesterday afternoon. I have provided to you as quickly as possible today. And then I also received a good number of projects inquiring the status. All those projects we have sent to Mayor and Council the list of projects that are going to be resurfaced in 2020 and 2021. Out of your list that you provide to me this afternoon, all of them are to be resurfaced before October 2021.
I have no documentation. I have an entire subdivision that has not been touched. It is a 40-year-old subdivision. Not one street in that subdivision has been touched. And I don't see it on any of these lists. Is it a fact that whatever streets are not on this list cannot be added afterward. It's my understanding that whatever we approve today, we cannot add anything else after. If we approve this today, this is the list and nothing else.
Let me address one question. The subdivision that you're referring to is the Haley Hill subdivision. It is scheduled for 2021. We are on the schedule. It will be resurfaced this year before the end of October. Now, on the projects, like we've done it before, if we miss something because subdivisions are not defined clearly the entrance from one point to another point. In the past, subdivisions were done in a different format. They have different entrances. They have 2-3 roads. It's called a different name. You move on to the next road. It has a different name and so on. If we made a mistake, if for some reason we left something out, we're going to make remedy because we're not going to leave a subdivision and leave a road that should have been resurfaced. And we've done that in the past.
I just want to be clear, Mr. Toms, can we add streets that are not on this list after we approve this list?
The reason why is that, you have 90.3 million.
Mr. Valenzuela, he gave that question to Mr. Toms.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay, council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
My understanding is you can reallocate some money. It makes it a little bit more complicated when you actually name the roads. And I would recommend, maybe add extra roads to the list, because in any of the SPLOST lists that you do, you may not get to all of them. There may be extra cost overage, but you could always add extra projects. But you should know that depending on how the money comes in the price of oil and other components, you may not get to them all. The other thing you could do is you could add some broad categories, such as just resurfacing of other roads, if you just want to catch all.
Okay, so I am going to ask that the list of roads that I sent you be added to that list, just to ensure that they're in the list. And if there's no money for them, that's another, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But I do want to make sure those roads are in the list. In your presentation, you showed a very clear and scientific rubric or rationale for how we determined which roads were topped and resurfaced. I did not hear a rationale for the quick response, the operations and safety projects, or the bike and pedestrian projects. So if you want to just take those one by one, I see this grade that you gave for all of the topping and resurfacing. What is the method that you use to decide where we would be doing these other projects?
Under slide number 2, I display a good number of sources that we use, how the projects were collected. And if you recall on the slide, I believe number 2, we have the South Fulton County, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, the tiers plus 1 and the tiers 2 and 3. Then we have under sickly fix items that we receive constantly, complaints, concerns. We cannot do different things because that is only for maintenance, but we're discussing about capital projects. We would have field observations. We have met with the residents of the city of South Fulton. We have looked at unforeseen conditions, which we don't know when it's going to occur, when the bridge is going to collapse, when the sinkhole might fail, when a particular structure will fail, and all the virtual public meetings that we had. And throughout the years, we have been collecting sidewalks. Where do you want to have sidewalks? The concerns and comments came from many of your of the rest of the councils, as they were receiving requests from their constituents. That's how we came up with the best approach on how we selected projects for you all.
So I want to respond to that, and then I'm going to yield. I know I've taken a lot of time. I do reserve the request to come back a second time in the queue, but to speak specifically to sidewalks, I hear that you got a lot of feedback from people, but that's not how we determine what streets needed resurfacing. We drove around and graded the streets and used a logical method. I would suggest that a logical method for where sidewalks are placed is that we follow MARTA's example. They have done studies and pedestrian studies to see where people who do not have transportation walking. And there are there are many people who are getting off of buses and walking in ditches. And they're walking in ditches to buses, and they don't have any other method of transportation. It would be my suggestion that the first place we put sidewalks is where there are bus stops, that no one should be getting on or off a bus in the city of South Fulton and walking in a ditch. I yield.
I made point of order. Excuse me, point of order, Mayor. If the mayor is not here, then I would take over as pro tem. Is the mayor?
I'm sorry. What is your point of order?
Point of order is that the clock yield 5 minutes for each person to speak, and we adopted the rule that each person should be able to speak up to 10 minutes, 5 minutes at a time.
Yes.
I would appreciate if we, follow those rules that the council adopted.
Excuse me, Mr. Clerk, did we violate that rule on Mr. Khalid's conversation?
No, he spoke for his allocated 5 minutes.
That's what I thought he did. The clock was right in front of me. Now, we also have a rule too, Miss, that you brought up the last time, Mayor Pro Tem, and that was if you ask a question of a staff member, that the clock stopped to give the staff member the opportunity to respond. So he did do 5 minutes. Okay, Ms. Rowell, you're up.
Yes, a couple questions. I know this list differs from what was in the T-SPLOS meeting. And can you give a little more insight? I know you did allow us to have one-on-ones to talk about the conditions. And so you had to prioritize because, of course, there's some communities on here that I have a question about, particularly Cascade Oaks. That's an apartment complex. So are you talking about on, I'm just not clear where that, we wouldn't be resurfacing that parking area, would we? That's not what we're talking about, right?
No, ma'am.
What are you talking about, Mr. Valenzuela?
Right, that's what I'm unclear because, I mean, if so, then that's just Old Cascade Road. Because once you turn in there, that's an apartment complex.
Okay, well, you answered the question, Mr. Valenzuela. She's asking, would it be the full complex?
I'm just trying to get clarity.
Yeah, let me double check, please.
Okay, and then the follow-up, if that was the case, I would say that Loch Lomond needed to be done more than that because I think that is private property, if that is the apartment complex. And then just one other thing, if we are going the route that Councilman Khalid, I would like all the pedestrian bike improvements that was on the list in the first meeting to be on the list, whether the money is there or not. So once we open it up, you've opened it up. I guess that's my point. Because there are a number of sidewalks that were on that original list that if money is available, would like for them to be considered. And finally, my question is, I know Fulton Industrial is now a part of our city, of course. And one of the things I forwarded the list that I got from Mr. Prado. It does not appear that they have any projects. And the big one that they're concerned about is sidewalks, because there's so many workers who walk, especially at night. You know, we've had a number of fatalities for people trying to cross over those roads, that at a minimum, that those sidewalks on Fulton Industrial need to stay. And it looks like it might be a study. So can you clarify the item that you said for Fulton Industrial? Are those the sidewalks, or is it just a study?
Let me provide to you a couple of scenarios. We will add for tier 3 projects that were under prior discussions, and you believe that were needed right there. We will put those projects for tier 3. Tier 1 and 2, we work with the budget. We fit the $90.3 million. So
Okay.
anything else we'll put right there for tier 3. Okay. Then we put $1.6 million for Fulton Industrial Boulevard. In this case, since we don't have much information where the needs are for FIB, we felt like it should be something to begin with, that it is much similar to what we've done with T+1. Considering that Fulton just paid last year for resurfacing on FIB, they're going to resurface the pending roads this year. And then we have other projects with them under T+1. I think 1.6 will allow us to do the primary needs on FIB.
Okay, I did fight for the list. Like I said, the big one, they're concerned about safety and sidewalks along that area because of the number of fatalities that they've seen over the years. So I just want to emphasize that. Please include that on the list, as
Yes,
well
ma'am.
as those. Thank you. And the pedestrian, even if they're tier 3, I'd rather see them there.
Absolutely, we'll do it.
Okay, Ms.
Thank you.
Young,
Point of order, Mayor.
what's your point of order, man?
My point of order is that I wanted to clarify my point of order. It was not in reference to Khalid's going over his time. It was in reference to each of us getting an opportunity to go twice, up to 10 minutes, 5 minutes in each interval. Khalid, mentioned he reserved the right to go twice, and oftentimes council members are not allowed to go twice. Their time is up, and then we go to a vote. My point of order is we adopted the rule that each council member gets up to 10 minutes and 5 minutes twice.
I understand that, Miss Mayor Pro Tem. That's why I did not recognize your point of order, because it didn't go to nothing that was procedural at the time. Now that you explained it to me now, it is our rule that we do have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, and then go around twice. It also says that if you come the second time, those who have not speak come before you. All right, so I do acknowledge what you said, and now Ms. Gump has not spoken tonight. She can come before now. Ms. Gump?
Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe I had my meeting with Mr. Valenzuela and his team, and one of the things that I do want him to reiterate was the process of how you go about picking these subdivisions, because of course, we got a lot of conversation in regards to that. So just so that it's clear and on the record, can you just state the formula that you use as to how you pick these subdivisions?
If we go into the paving condition index, a bracket from 55, 60 and below, we started looking into it. Subdivisions up to 20, 30, 40, 50, and then we started assessing what else is within subdivision that are at 60, 65, and 70. So a subdivision that's between 60 and 70 might be much cheaper to do it than a subdivision that it is under a serious condition that's number 10, or a very, very poor condition that would be number 25. So if you repair a subdivision that's in fair condition, you're just gonna mill and repay very quickly, and it's not gonna take any time, it's gonna be much cheaper. So in some of the subdivisions, larger subdivisions, we found that some of the roads were in good conditions, but the main road were different. Some of those larger subdivisions, they had different phases, phase from 1 to 3 phases. So the initial phases were in worse conditions than subsequent phases. So we put additional money under the quick response that will allow us to do immediate repairs on those subdivisions that we have major failures on the main roads or secondary roads. Typically, the main roads are the ones that fail quicker. The smaller roads that go into a cul-de-sac or dead end, there's not much traffic, so those roads are in better conditions. But the main roads are in worse conditions, and the quick response funding will allow us to do quick responses in a professional manner and not just filling potholes.
Thank you. I just wanted, the public to know that we weren't like just randomly picking, streets out of a hat or anything. There is an actual formula. So thank you for explaining that.
Okay, before I let the speaker speak,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Clerk, let me finish my statement, please.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk, do you have anyone's hand that is raised who has not spoken?
Yes.
Mr. Clerk, do you have anybody's hand who is raised who has not spoken?
Yes, the only person I see now regarding this item is Councilmember Willis online.
No.
Yes. So anyone who has not spoken?
Yes, I haven't.
Mr. Reed, Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Understand my question?
Mayor, I have not spoken regarding the issue.
You have not. I'm saying. Anyone who has raised their hand has not spoken, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah, Ms. Gilyard is verbally saying, but she doesn't have her hand raised online.
That's because I can't do it.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to Miss Willis is in the queue. I'll get Miss Gilyard, and then at such time I'll allow Mr. Khalid to come back, and then we'll vote.
Mayor, I would like to go twice because what I have to say is going to require up to my 10 minutes. So you're taking away my ability to speak 10 minutes, and what I have to say is I can't say it all in 5 minutes.
The chair has that right if he so chooses. It says up to 10 minutes. It's not given. It's not given.
But you're taking away my right to speak before I've had a chance to go back in the queue.
I haven't given you the right yet, Ms. Willis. I mean, I'm letting you speak now, but what it clearly says that you can speak up to 10 minutes. 5 up to. All right. Let's get Miss your matter of fact, right now you can talk, Ms. Willis.
Okay. 10 minutes on the clock. Well, first of all, I want to clarify the communication part. And I want to say thank you, Mr. Valenzuela, because he's done a yeoman's job with doing his best to communicate with this council. We got the first email, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the public, because I don't want the perception put out that there's not a lot of transparency and there wasn't any communication. Because there was a lot of communication. We got the first email from Ms. Sadler Jones on April 20th, requesting for T-SPLOS 2 input from this entire council. And then we got another email on April 26th from Mr. Valenzuela himself, requesting for input for T-SPLOS 2. Then we had 3 public input meetings on May 10th. There was a meetings for District 1, 2, and 3, and that was for the public to participate and provide feedback. And I am grateful for that because there were a couple of subdivisions in District 3 that were missing, and we were able to get them added because residents were able to participate and express they needed their subdivision resurface. Then Wednesday, May 12th, there was another meeting specifically for District 4. And then there was a public meeting on Thursday, May 13th for Districts 5, 6, and 7. In addition, there was another meeting. There was an adoption. There was another meeting. They added another meeting for public input because after those 3 meetings, the public still wanted additional comments. And so then after that, when we had all of the meetings and Mr. Valenzuela met with the council members, I know he met with me at least twice. He sent a proposed list of projects to the council people, and the council people had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Valenzuela again. And so I was able to meet with Mr. Valenzuela based on feedback that I got from my community from the information meetings, the 4 information meetings, plus before the information meetings, I sent him a list of subdivisions that I just thought of off the top of my head. But I said in the retreat, and I said to Mr. Valenzuela, and I said to the city manager, I am not a public works subject matter expertise. I am relying on public works subject matter expertise to bring back recommendations on what they think should be done in my district. Then Mr. Valenzuela explained to me that there was a subdivision study done on the entire city to assess the streets in the entire subdivisions in the entire city. And based on that information, he will use that information in collaboration with the feedback he got from the community and in collaboration with the feedback he got from the council members to make recommendations on what should be in a T-SPLOST project. Mr. Valenzuela met with me again on via a conference call on Monday to go over the comprehensive list that he put together specifically for District 3. So I brought forth this recommendation to approve T-SPLOST because Mr. Valenzuela and the city manager's office have done a great job explaining to me how they came to this recommendation, and it started back in April. So they have communicated with the council members, they have communicated with the public, and at the end of the day, you know, we want everything done, but we can't please everybody. We have to prioritize, and priority can't come from me. It has to come from the subject matter expert, because I know nothing about public works. I didn't go to school for public works. Mr. Valenzuela's, that's his subject matter expertise, and I trust his recommendations based on our conversations and based on the feedback that I got from the community. And so I understand there's a substitute motion on the floor because some people are saying they just got this document today, but I just don't understand how, when these conversations have been going on since April, and I know I've had at least 6 conversations with Mr. Valenzuela, and I know he's gone to the public at least 4 times, and I know that he does provide equity when you want to talk with him about specific needs in your area. So thank you, Mr. Valenzuela. Thank you, Miss Tammi Jones and her team. I know that we don't have the money to, get everything done, but I trust that the recommendations that had come before this council is the best recommendation that we have. As far as Fulton Industrial goes,
time is up on that one. Okay, we're gonna go with Mr. Khalid, and then Ms. Willis again, then I'll speak and then we'll vote.
But you forgot me. I haven't talked.
Did I forget Ms. Gilyard? I'm sorry.
Yeah. You
go right ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Valenzuela as well, because I know it was a tough job, and I came to the table with my nice little long list, and he had documentation to show me how he went about choosing what was on the list, and it all really sort of made sense to me. But now that I've heard that this big wish list, which is tier 3, I would like to add to tier 3 only the section of Hall Road that people want, that the citizens want paved. Now, mind you, I want everybody to hear me. Only the citizens who want that section paved, but it's not close to the section where the citizens don't want it paved. This is the section that's constantly being treated because of the buses coming down and throwing up dirt, and it is too expensive to do it year after year. So if our revenue increases, which allows us to move into tier 3, I would like to add that to tier 3, Mr. Valenzuela.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Okay.
Thank you, Gilyard. We'll go with Mr. Khalid, then we'll go back to Ms. Willis, and then I'll speak and then we'll vote.
So first, I just want to be clear. I am not saying that Mr. Valenzuela did nothing. I think you've done a lot, Mr. Valenzuela. I am just saying that I need more. First off, I believe that any resident, not just members of council, but that any resident should be able to go to City of South Fulton GA.gov, type in their street name, and find out when their street is going to be paved. And if it's not going to be paved, and if it's not on the list at all. I know that in our meeting, which did not happen until yesterday, and my apologies for that, but I know that I asked about streets and there weren't answers about the streets. And so I just think that these lists should be public so that everybody can see them and people can search for their street paving. Street pavings and resurfacings aside, I do still have concerns because I have not heard a logical and objective rationale for how the other projects are done. There's a whole bunch of slides on how we do subdivision toppings and resurfacing, but what I hear for the other projects, it's just who came to the meetings and spoke the most, who called 311 the most, and I think those are all valid, but they are not objective. And there are places like Creel Road where people are getting off a bus and walking in the dirt. Lastly, there are multiple requests from council members in this meeting to add streets and sidewalks and projects to this list. So if you have compiled all of those and vote with all of those included, I have no problem going forward today.
Mr. Khalid, I appreciate the thoughts and so on. We will double check all the lists. I'll guarantee you that District 5, 6, and 7 got a lot of attention on the T+1, and we're going to make sure that anything that's missing, that's added into our recommendation for T+2. If not, it will be under, it still be under T+2 under Tier 3. But just to touch base a little bit with sidewalks, we typically get sidewalks throughout the years. It's not something that we just got here. It might be a collection of data for the past 20, 25 years plus. And how do we get those things? We look into transit, we look at the gaps, we look at connectivity, we look at what's called foot traffic or gut traffic and so on. So we have a vast number of recommendations that how we come up with those things before doing any recommendation for street lights. I mean, for the sidewalks. Granted, to give you an example, Old National Highway, then we want to do Flat Shoals Road. We want to connect Flat Shoals Road with Old National Highway. We want to connect Old National Highway with Bethsaida Road. So that's connectivity that allows different things. And that is the same procedure on other areas. We want to connect Roosevelt Highway with Walcomore Road. We want to upgrade the sidewalks on Cascade Road that it's missing sidewalks and so on. And believe me, we're paying a lot of dollars for sidewalks. It's very expensive and it's very tedious to do it. And then now that we have an opportunity, I thought we pick up the best sidewalks with the best justifications that we've done it throughout the years. And then don't forget, you all were part of the comprehensive transportation plan, where it was discussed sidewalks, where it was discussed intersection improvements, multi-use trails, and so on.
So,
yes, sir.
Your question with you was the fact with those particular items be added to the list.
Yeah, he said tier 3.
Yes.
Yes, we'll add it under tier 3.
Mr. Khalid, his answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think I have now Miss Willis again.
Okay.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Willis. Mr. Khalid, did I cut you off? Okay, well, let me get you back.
Thank you. And now that the answer is yes, if you would just add Creel Road sidewalks from Creel Road to Old National to that list. Thank you.
Understood.
Got it.
Go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Member Tim, go right ahead.
And so just to add further clarification to the communication, on May 5th, Mr. Valenzuela's staffer, Mr. Rusan, sent an email to all the council members asking us to review the proposed, not the council members, to the council member legislative specialists to ask them, because my legislative specialist brought to me a proposed list that was published to the community. So there was a list published in every meeting that was held in the districts. It was a published list May 10th, May 12th, and May 13th. That's how my community came back to me and told me what was not on the list, how their subdivisions weren't on the list. Then Mr. Rusan came back. He sent an email to the specialist and specialists to work with the council members to make sure nothing was missed. And so a list did go out to the community, and it was a comprehensive list of what streets that are going to be proposed in T-Splosh 2. The question that I do have, and I think also one more thing, the T-Splosh 2 was discussed in every mayor's meeting. The mayor's meeting was held once a month. And every time there was a mayor's meeting, our clerk sent out the link to the mayor's meeting, the agenda to the mayor's meeting, and all of the supporting documents that was in the mayor's meeting. And T-Splosh 2 has been discussed in every mayor's meeting. So my question to you, Mr. Valenzuela, about Fulton Industrial, T-Splosh, is it true or is it not true? And maybe this question is for the mayor. Isn't the county supposed to give us some money towards T-Splosh 2 for Fulton Industrial?
Not necessarily for T-Splosh 2. What the mayor was able to settle with Fulton County was a good number of roads that were pending, that were scheduled for resurfacing this year. And Fulton was not going to resurface, but our mayor has able to resolve that, and Fulton will pay for the resurfacing of those roads.
Mayor,
Ms. Willis, let me just say this without going into detail. There are negotiations there are still negotiations that have to be made. Okay. As it pertains to the delivery of Fulton Industrial Boulevard.
Okay. And so, you know, I know that we have to service Fulton Industrial, but I just want to make sure all of the cities all of the entire community that have been paying into our tax digest are taken care of, that have been waiting 10 and 15 years, for their streets to be paved, to be taken care of. I know the mayor will be successful in those negotiations as he has been successful in other endeavors on behalf of our city. Thank you.
Okay, let me just say this, then we'll call for a meeting. And thank you. I gotta say, Ms. Willis, that you covered everything that I would want to cover. Because sometimes, we give the perception that we don't know nothing. That nothing's ever happened, that the sky just fell yesterday. And that's really not true. It really isn't. And when we come back, and when you have, one of the statements was, I have a 40-year-old subdivision that ain't on the list. And then you come back and the professional says it's on the list. Well, listen, in those kinds of cases, I would have been fighting for those particular places up front. Who have I seen? I've seen Ms. Rowell come in this office all the time and sit around and talk about these specific issues that we're talking about today. I've seen the Mayor Pro Tem come in and talk about these issues. I've seen others. I just don't understand where all of this, I just got it today, come from. Because she's right. It has been a whole litany of things, that opportunities. And it's your job. It is your job to go in for your community and make sure that those things that your community is talking about, that they're on the list and that they're either going to be approved or not be approved. So I just want to make sure clear, I am very disturbed about all this conversation about, I don't know. So at this time, Mr. Adams, would you call the vote, please?
Yes, there's a motion on the floor, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Willis, seconded by Councilmember Gumbs to approve the T-Splosh 2 final list with the amendments as noted.
It's been second?
Yes, by Councilmember Gumbs.
Let's vote it, please.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Gumbs?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilyard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes, with the amendments of multiple colleagues.
yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Baker. Councilmember
Aye.
Baker.
And thank you, Mr. Valenzuela. That's aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, thank you. That motion was approved unanimously.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved to second that we adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Rowell. Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilyard.
Go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye. Thank you.
We are adjourned at 5:30 p.m.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.